a sacred misfit, why you were never meant to belong anywhere. You've felt it your whole life, haven't you? That quiet ache in your soul, that sense of standing in two worlds at once, never fully here, never fully there. You walk into rooms and feel everything. You listen to people and hear what they're not saying. You laugh, but there's always a deeper silence underneath. And no matter how much you try to just be normal, something in you knows you're not here to bridge worlds. That's what it means to be a bridge chosen one. You weren't born to fit a mold. You were born to become the mold breaker. To carry the codes that connect the ancient with the modern, the spiritual with the practical, the invisible with the visible. And for that kind of task, you had to be different. You had to feel like the outsider. Because only those who stand between worlds can build the path that others will one day walk upon. You've felt it your whole life, haven't you? That quiet ache in your soul, that sense of standing in two worlds at once, never fully here, never fully there. You walk into rooms and feel everything. You listen to people and hear what they're not saying. You laugh, but there's always a deeper silence underneath. And no matter how much you try to just be normal, something in you knows you're not here to bridge worlds. That's what it means to be a bridge chosen one. You weren't born to fit a mold. You were born to become the mold breaker. To carry the codes that connect the ancient with the modern, the spiritual with the practical, the invisible with the visible. And for that kind of task, you had to be different. You had to feel like the outsider. Because only those who stand between worlds can build the path that others will one day walk upon. The second sign is the multi-dimensional awareness. You don't just see what people do, you sense why they do it. You don't just hear words, you feel vibrations. You don't just think, you download. This isn't imagination, it's spiritual intelligence. Your system is wired to hold multiple frequencies at once. That's why you feel overwhelmed in crowds. That's why you need more quiet than others. That's why you often feel like you're too much or too sensitive. But sensitivity is not weakness, it's refinement. You were designed to be a tuning fork between heaven and earth. You pick up on what others dismiss. You translate pain into purpose, chaos into clarity, darkness into data. But with that gift comes a responsibility. You must learn to discern what's yours and what's not. Because bridges are only strong when they know what weight they're meant to carry and what weight they're not. The third sign is the collapse of timing as you knew it. Suddenly, the things you planned don't happen when you thought. The doors you expected to open stay shut, and the doors you didn't even knock on fly open without warning. This isn't bad luck. This is divine orchestration. As a bridge chosen one, you're not on a normal timeline, you're on a prophetic sequence. Your life is being synchronized with movements in the unseen. That means you'll often feel late or behind, but only if you're comparing yourself to people who aren't carrying what you carry. You must become comfortable with divine delay, because when the bridge is ready, it has to be flawless. It has to hold the weight of generations. And that kind of structure takes time, stripping, silence, and surrender. So the delay is not denial, it's design. What if your waiting season is actually your welding season? The fourth sign is the language of paradox. You feel joy and sadness at the same time. You believe deeply in hope, yet you're intimately familiar with despair. You crave solitude, but you're built for impact. You long for simplicity, yet carry complexity in your soul. And for years, you may have thought this was confusion, but it's not. It's capacity. You are being stretched to hold opposites. Because to be a true bridge, you must understand both sides. You must walk in the tension without collapsing into either extreme. You must become the space where contradiction resolves into clarity. That's not easy. Most people run from paradox, but you were built for it. That's why your life doesn't make sense to others. It's not supposed to. You're not a destination. You're a transition point. You're not the temple. You're the threshold. The fifth sign is an inner fire that won't go out, even when everything else does. No matter how many times you fall, you get back up. No matter how many times you doubt, there's a whisper that pulls you forward. Sometimes it feels irrational, illogical, even insane. You've tried to quit, you've tried to settle, but something won't let you. That's not ego, that's calling. The fire is your blueprint, and no matter how much life tries to bury it, it keeps resurrecting. Because it's not just about you, it's about the bridge you're becoming for others. What if your persistence isn't stubbornness, but prophetic memory? What if you're remembering a future that hasn't happened yet, and that's why you keep walking toward it even when no one else sees it? The sixth sign is a holy loneliness that no relationship can fully soothe. Even when you're surrounded by people, there's a part of you that stays untouched. It's not brokenness, it's consecration. You've been set apart. That doesn't mean you're better. It means you're different, and difference creates distance. Not because you don't want to connect, but because your soul knows it's carrying something sacred. And not everyone is meant to touch it. So if you felt unseen, misunderstood, or too deep for most people, it's not a curse. It's a marking, and the right ones will recognize it. The ones who are part of your bridge-building tribe. The ones who are also walking through the wilderness with blueprints in their bones. Until then, embrace the loneliness. Let it become your sanctuary. Because in that space, your instructions will come. And finally, the seventh sign. You are starting to feel the weight of legacy more than the thrill of success. You're no longer obsessed with being liked. You're focused on being aligned. You don't care about going viral. You want to go vertical. You want to build something that lasts, something that outlives you. You want to leave behind a frequency, not just a brand. That's how you know you're crossing over. The ego is dying. The soul is rising. And with that rising comes a holy responsibility to live with integrity, to walk with intention, and to become the bridge that others didn't have. This is not about you anymore. It's about what will be built through you. And that's what makes it sacred. So let me ask you this. What if everything you've ever misunderstood about yourself, your sensitivity, your delays, your paradoxes, your loneliness was never a flaw, but a fingerprint, a signature from the divine that says, "This one is mine, set apart, sealed, becoming the bridge." Why you've been feeling the shift before it happens. There's something different about the way you feel time. It's not linear for you, it's layered. You sense things before they happen. You feel the storm before the clouds appear. You grieve endings before they arrive, and you celebrate beginnings that no one else sees yet. That's not your imagination, it's your spiritual radar. As a bridge chosen one, you are not just reacting to life, you are syncing with divine movement. The blueprint in your bones responds to shifts in the unseen. You're being guided not by logic, but by resonance. That's why you feel confused when you try to explain your decisions to others. They're not tuned to the frequency you're hearing. They're walking by sight. But you walk by sacred signal. And this signal often shows up as restlessness, dreams, unexpected clarity, or even sudden grief. It's your soul updating itself in real time. You're not crazy, you're calibrating. One of the most unnerving things about being a bridge chosen one is the internal knowing that precedes external evidence. You'll feel a chapter closing before there's any reason for it to end. You'll know when to leave a job, a city, a relationship, not because it's bad, but because its assignment is complete. And people will look at you sideways. They'll say, "Why would you walk away from that?" But you're not walking away, you're walking ahead. You're being shown the next blueprint before others even realize the current one is fading. That kind of foresight is both a gift and a burden, because it means you often walk alone, but it also means you're becoming the one who clears the path. Have you noticed that your life tends to shift right before a collective shift happens? That's because you're not just aligned with your personal timeline, you're aligned with prophetic timing. The blueprint is not something you find, it's something you remember. It's already encoded in your spirit. That's why certain books, places, people, or words activate you. Not because they teach you something new, but because they awaken something ancient. You feel it in your body, that surge of recognition, that deep ache of truth, that vibration that says, "I've seen this before." It's cellular memory, your DNA responding to divine design. So when you feel those moments, don't ignore them. Don't explain them away. Follow them. Because they're not just moments, they're markers. Signposts in the wilderness. Clues that you're still on the right path, even when everything looks unfamiliar. Ask yourself, what moments in your life felt strangely significant, like a memory from the future? There's something else too. You're starting to notice that your presence alone shifts rooms. People open up around you without knowing why. Strangers tell you their secrets. Friends come to you for guidance, even if you're the youngest in the group. And sometimes you don't even say much, yet your silence feels like a mirror. That's not just charisma, that's frequency leadership. You're not just speaking truth, you're holding it. Your nervous system becomes a permission slip for others to come back into coherence. And this is crucial for a bridge chosen one, because bridges don't just know the way, they become the way. That means your own healing, your own alignment, your own embodiment are non-negotiable, not for applause, not for validation, but because your field is the message, your being is the blueprint. You've also been noticing how old ways of coping are failing. The distractions don't distract you anymore. The numbing doesn't numb. The cycles don't cycle. And what used to feel like comfort now feels like poison. This is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. Your soul is rejecting what no longer matches the mission. The old tools won't work because you're not the same person. You're upgrading. And with every upgrade comes a purge. So don't panic when the things that used to work stop working. That's not regression, that's refinement. The bridge is being reinforced. Every old story, every false identity, every unconscious pattern, it's being burned off so that only truth remains. And that truth isn't a concept, it's a frequency. You don't need to understand all of it yet. You just need to stay available to it. You've probably started noticing how your conflicts are more symbolic than personal. The arguments aren't really about what they seem. The tension in your relationships isn't just about behavior, it's about alignment. The friction you feel with certain people is spiritual, not emotional. Because as your frequency rises, anything out of harmony becomes louder. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. The contrast is revealing what can no longer stay. And yes, it's painful, but it's also precise. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. The relationships that are meant to cross the bridge with you will evolve. The ones that can't will fall away. And that's okay, because you're not here to carry everyone. You're here to become a carrier of truth. That truth will attract exactly who needs to walk with you. Let me ask you something right now. What are you still holding on to that no longer matches the frequency of who you're becoming? Because here's the real test of the bridge chosen one. It's not whether you can hear the call. It's whether you can release the comfort that kept you from answering it. You're not being asked to sacrifice your joy. You're being asked to surrender your smallness. The version of you that was afraid to be seen, afraid to be different, afraid to lead, that version cannot cross the bridge. Only the real you can. And that real you is not being created. It's being revealed. You're not here to walk the bridge. You are here to be it. There comes a moment in the journey where you stop looking for the bridge and you realize you are it. Not metaphorically, literally. Your life, your scars, your silence, your breakthroughs, all of it is the living material that forms the spiritual architecture others will walk across. You're not just here to awaken. You're here to become the awakening in motion. Not everyone will understand how heavy that is. The pressure, the responsibility, the endless inner work. But you do it anyway. Because deep down, you know this isn't about you anymore. It's about what's coming through you. You are the bridge between timelines, between ancestral prayers and future manifestations, between the old systems that are crumbling and the new frequencies that are rising, between people who have lost their way and the home they forgot they carry inside. You are not waiting on a shift. You are the shift. And this is why your life has felt like a paradox of extremes. You were taken into the depths not to drown, but to learn the language of those who live there. You've walked through shadows not because you're dark, but because you were called to translate the dark back into light. That's the essence of being a bridge. You don't belong to one side. You hold both. You've had to be human enough to understand pain, but divine enough to transmute it. Grounded enough to walk with the wounded, but elevated enough to remind them of their crown. You've had to be underestimated so that your rise could not be explained by talent alone. And you've had to be hidden so your unveiling would carry the kind of power only heaven could write. Your life is not a contradiction. It's a construction zone. You are literally being built to carry others across. But being the bridge also means learning how to stay rooted in your center while others walk across you. Yes, people will misunderstand you. They'll project onto you. They'll take from your wisdom without thanking you, drain your energy without asking. And if you're not careful, you'll start to resent the very calling you were born for. So here's the deeper lesson. You must learn how to be the bridge without becoming the burden. You are not responsible for how others use your light. You are only responsible for keeping your light clean. That means boundaries. That means discernment. That means knowing when to open the gates and when to close them. A bridge doesn't move for traffic. It stands still. It doesn't chase cars. It simply holds its position with integrity. You don't need to prove your value. You embody it. And yes, sometimes you'll be walked on. That's part of the assignment. Sometimes you'll feel like you're breaking under the weight of people's expectations, their wounds, their projections. But that's when you remember, bridges don't break when they're built right. And you're being built by divine design. Every test, every heartbreak, Every delay has been reinforcing your structure, not just emotionally, but energetically. Your nervous system is becoming a conduit. Your body is becoming an altar. Your frequency is becoming a tuning fork. And the stronger your foundation, the more gracefully you carry others. Not because you're trying to save them, but because your presence makes remembering possible. You don't even have to say much. You just have to be aligned. And alignment, for the bridge chosen one, is everything. This is why you've been called into deeper solitude lately. Not isolation, consecration. You're being calibrated, refined, silenced, taught. Not by books or gurus, but by the divine directly. You're being shown how to hold space without collapsing, how to speak truth without ego, how to move in power without performance, and most importantly, how to become the bridge between heaven and earth without splitting yourself in two. That requires wholeness. It requires radical self-love. It requires saying no to anything that fragments your soul, even if it looks good on paper. Because your alignment is not just personal, it's architectural. If you collapse, the blueprint collapses. So you don't chase trends, you chase truth. You don't follow followers, you follow frequency. You're not here to build a brand, you're here to birth a new world. And the wildest part, you may never get credit for it. The people who walk across the bridge rarely stop to ask who built it. They just feel safer. They find clarity. They remember who they are. That's your reward. Not applause, activation. Not fame, frequency. You're not here to be famous. You're here to be formational, to shift atmospheres, to anchor timelines, to carry codes so ancient and so high frequency that they don't even have language yet, only resonance. And when people are around you, they feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they'll say things like, "I don't know why, but I feel different around you." That's the bridge at work. That's what happens when you stop trying to be seen and start becoming a space where the unseen can breathe. So let me leave you with this question, one that only the deepest part of you can answer. Are you willing to become the bridge, even if it means never walking across it yourself? Are you willing to hold the tension, carry the weight, and remain unshaken, not for your glory, but for the rising of a generation that will never know how much you paid for their freedom? Because if the answer is yes, then hear this: you're not becoming the bridge. You already are it. And now, it's time to stand.